What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. Rising from the grave, we have Phantom Knights. This time, they've come back from their adventure with some new friends. Fresh out of the King Sarcophagus, the Horus cards arise with their power to send cards from the hand to the graveyard, alongside their ability to swarm the field. But first, if you're a fan of in-depth combo videos, new set coverage, and occasional fun stuff that we like to do on the channel, breathe some life into those thumbs up and subscribe buttons the way that Konami has for a channel old favorite deck, Torrent Scales and Fogblade, and you'll see that the opponent has an Imperm in hand. Because this is kind of a how to play video, I want to show one of the weaknesses that this deck has and things you can do to circumvent it, though it is important to note that most lists don't play this because it does take extra deck space in order to do so. So when you don't have any good discards, as you see we have a Fogblade, and the Fogblade only is a good discard if you do play this stuff, but have to pass if we don't have anything else. So you're going to see that we go into the Almirage, and then we can use the Fogblade to revive the Torrent Scales, and then you have the ability to go into SP Little Knight. This was something that you could do before when we went into Verte, before that got banned for DPE and Dragoon, and you can also do it with just Phantom Knight's Cloak, as you can search yourself the Shade Brigadine, then use the Shade Brigadine to go into Link Spider, and then the Link Spider and Almirage can go into SP Little Knight. And the reason why a pretty relevant play for Phantom Knights, in my opinion, is because it's one of the few plays that really don't take that much resources from the hand. With the Horus stuff, Adventure stuff, and the Phantom Knight stuff, you still are pitching stuff from the hand. You need 2 level 3s for Phantom Knights to get into Cherubini and stuff like that. So that is why I show this, but now I'm going to take you on to the next one. Now, I want to show off a full combo with the Torrent Scales and the Fogblade, and I'm going to do this for the next couple of combos as well, because there's different ways to play it, especially depending on the circumstance. So we're going to start here by normal summoning the Torrent Scales, use its effect to send the Fogblade, and get ourselves the Cloak in the graveyard. Use Cloak's effect in order to search ourselves the boots, so that we can then special summon the boots, and then we can go into our Cherubini. We'll use the Cherubini effect as we'll send the gloves as a cost so that we can boost the attack of the Keru, and then we'll use the effect of the Fogblade reviving the boots. You don't want to revive the gloves, because if you get Nibiru the minute that you summon this Torrent Scales, then the gloves would be able to send you another boots, so that you can get yourself a Fogblade and at least have something with that. But we're going to go into the Breaksword. We'll then be able to go into Rusty, as we'll use the Rusty's effect, sending ourselves the Cloak, as we'll then be able to get ourselves the Fogblade. Use the effect of the Phantom Knight's boots in order to get ourselves the Fogblade. We'll then be able to use the gloves in order to send ourselves the wings. And now we have 2 Fogblades along with the ability to use the wings effect on our opponent's turn to revive the Breaksword under one of Rusty's pointers, so that we can destroy a card that our opponent controls, or even one of our own, depending on the circumstance. Now, for this third combo, this will just be an alternative way that you can play this, and this will also come up because there will be times where you want resources back, and you'll see what I mean by that, as we're going to banish the Cloak as we pitch the Scales for the Torrent Scales, and then we're going to special summon out the boots. We'll go into the Keru. We'll use the effect of the Keru for the gloves, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Fogblade to bring back the boots, then use the effect of the Torrent Scales from the graveyard so that we can revive it, and then we'll be able to go into our Levier. The Levier will then be able to revive the Cloak, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the boots in order to get ourselves our Shade Brigadine. Now, I would like to point out that for the next combo, this will also be pretty relevant. This is one of the plays that you can make for follow-up turns in order to get yourself more bodies on board, but we're now going to be able to activate the Shade Brigadine so that we can special summon it, and then we'll go into our Rusty. We'll use the effect of the Cloak, and keep in mind that you also could have done that differently if you wanted to. You could have just linked away the Cloak for the Rusty with the Keru, and then save your boots effect for a Fogblade, but I just wanted to show that you could do this approach, as we're going to go into the SP Little Knight. Now we're going to use the effect of Rusty so that we can send ourselves these Scales and get ourselves a copy of Fogblade, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the gloves, sending ourselves the wings for some follow-up. So now this next one will cater more towards follow-up and going second, and what you're going to do when you don't want to go into Cherubini. So we're going to start by normal summoning the Torn Scales as we're going to pitch the Fog Blade. We'll send off the Cloak as we'll be able to use the Cloak in order to get ourselves the boots. We'll then be able to special summon the boots, go into our mask. We'll then be able to revive the boots off of the Fog Blade as we're then going to use the effect of the scales to bring that back. Then we can go into our Leviair. You'll see that going second or just follow-up wise, resource plays are the most important in my opinion because you want to be able to keep on out-grinding your opponent and getting your resources back while they struggle to get back their own. And that's really how Phantom Knights shine in my opinion because that's when they can snowball your opponent. But we're going to see the effect of boots here in order to get ourselves the wing. And then we're going to go into the Nightmare Unicorn. Now, technically you could get yourself a Fog Blade if you wanted to stop your opponent. If you have a way to extend beyond with your hand, you search yourself the wing as I am doing now. Use the unicorn, you can then go into access code, and really the options are depending on what you search, but you'll see that I just searched the wing, assuming that you're going for that OTK. Now, finally, we can get an introduction to the Horus cards with the PK stuff, and I think that this one in particular is important to note, because when you're playing Horus Phantom Knights, you shouldn't just think of the Horus cards as level 8s, because that's not what they are. Imseti is a dark monster, and Rusty needs dark monsters, and what this allows is fun stuff like this, where we're able to pitch the King Sarcophagus, or we're able to pitch a card for the King Sarcophagus so that we can send a Happy. This gives us access into a Link 2 play, so that we can go into our Masquerena. Now we have an indestructible Rusty access, as we can summon out the Shade, go into Rusty, then use the effect of Rusty, as we'll be able to send the Cloak along with the ability to set the Fog Blade, and then you can use the effect of the Cloak, which will be able to net you that follow-up. So this is why I feel like the Horus cards are really important in my opinion and shouldn't be slept on. Now for this next one we have Imseti plus Cloak, and this one shows kind of the more gas that you can do when you have with these two cards, but we're going to get ourselves the King Sarcophagus along with the draw. We're going to use the effect of the Cloak if you don't get drolled, but you're then going to get yourself the boots. We'll then be able to pitch 2, I believe, as we're going to send the droplets in order to get the Happy, then pitch the boots in order to get the other water one. I forget how to pronounce that, but we're going to special summon back our Imseti and our Happy so that we can go into a rank 8. You can go into Photon Lord, Vampire Zombie, or you can go into your Hope Harbinger, but we're then going to be able to use the effect of the boots, and then we'll be able to get ourselves the Shade Brigadine as we'll bring back the last Horus monster, and now we can end on a Hope Harbinger or whatever other rank 8 that you go into along with IP Masquerena. Now, another significant buff that this deck got with the Horus stuff is its synergy with the Adventure engine. And you'll see just in a moment how much advantage this can get you, but we're going to get ourselves the King Sarcophagus along with the draw, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Aqua in order to get ourselves the right, activate the right, bringing ourselves the token, then we'll be able to get ourselves the Fateful as we'll activate the King Sarcophagus. We'll then be able to bring back the Imseti as we're then going to trigger the Fateful. We'll get ourselves the Fateful effect in order for the Draco back, in order to get ourselves Griffin Rider with the Fateful so that we can pitch the Draco back, use the Draco back from the graveyard so that we can equip it to the token, activate the Griffin Rider as Chainlink 2, as we'll then be able to get the last pitch off of the King Sarcophagus for the Happy, and now we can get ourselves into a rank 8 access, giving us the Omni Negate plus a Spell Negate or a Monster Negate. You can get the Vampire Zombie for the advantage plays I was talking about, but it really depends on what type of build you're playing and what you want to do. So now I'm going to get onto the hand, and I know that this was kind of a weird and different combo type video, and it's because it really takes 2 3s to get into Keru, and the combos just change order from there. So I didn't want to spend too much time going through the different orders that you can do to make the same thing. Rather than, I wanted to show how to approach what you do at each different time. And you'll see that we have a talent in this hand, which is pretty nice, but we're going to get ourselves the Phantom Knight's Rugged Gloves, and then we're going to be able to activate the King Sarcophagus. So the main reason that you're doing this is because if you were to search out boots in this particular scenario, you special summon it out, go into Keru, and then at that point, Karu would be able to send your gloves from there, but you're not able to activate the boots or anything, so it's just a resource that feels kind of wasted for the turn and just sitting there. So instead of that, I decided to activate the King Sarcophagus, so this time we'll actually be able to get ourselves protection from any other hand trap at this point, because we can revive 2 Horus monsters to go into our Photon Lord. Then we'll be able to use the gloves in order to send the cloak, and keep in mind, this only counts if you don't get hit by Droll, but the main point is that you're going to be able to revive the Torn Scales, and then you can get its effect and continue on from there. But you'll see that I'm actually not going to use the Torn Scales, because assuming that you did not get Drolled, you can continue to play it this way if you want to play around the Droll in particular, but we're now going to be able to add ourselves the boot, and I do it in this order because if you search the Stain Greaves, or I forget the name of it, you can actually special summon it after you special summon the Torn Scales with its effect, so you don't have to search the boots, but in this particular hand I am, and we're going to use the scales in order to send the Fog Blade, as we're then going to special summon out the boots. Now we can go into our Karu, as we'll use the effect of the Karu sending the Aqua, and then we'll be able to use the effect of the Aqua, which will give us the ability to search the right. As we'll activate the right, we'll be able to get the token, and then we can get ourselves the Fateful, as we'll now use the Fog Blade to bring back the boots, and then from here we can use the effect of the Fateful, which will give us the add for the Draco back, as we're then going to use the Fateful so that we can get our Griffin Rider, and then from here you can use the effect of the Draco back, equipping it to the token, chain link to activate the Griffin from hand, special summon it, and then you can go into your Rusty this way. Now keep in mind that it's better to just revive the boots off of the Fog Blade, because if you banish it for the Shade, then you're just wasting a resource, but of the Rusty, and we're going to send ourselves the boots and set ourselves the Fog Blade, and there's going to be 2 ways that you can play this now. You can get yourself a Fog Blade, or you can get yourself a Shade Brigandine, use the effect of the King Sarcophagus if you didn't use the talents during your turn, and then get yourself the Imseti, use the effect of the Shade, and then from here you're just able to make a link play into Masquerena, and this is just good because if your Griffin or your Photon Lord do get hit with Imperm, then you just have the ability to go into your SP Little Knight. Now for this final hand, I want to show a hand full of all gas so you can kind of see for yourself how it looks when all these engines pretty much coexist while in your opening hand. So we're going to start this one by normal summoning the Cloak, and this is just another way to not get hit by the Droll and not lose from there, because if you activate the Imseti and pitch the Aqua, then it just means that you're going to potentially get Drolled and have your turn stop from there. But we're going to go into our Karu, we'll then be able to send the Torn Scales, we'll then be able to use the effect of the boots, as we're going to get ourselves a search for the Shade. Now we can set the Shade, and again, we're doing it in this order specifically because you want to be able to get into your Rusty without investing too many resources in case you get hit by Nibiru, since we aren't using the Horus stuff first in case of Droll. So we're going to go into our Rusty, and then we're going to use the effect of Rusty, as we can send the gloves and set ourselves the Fog Blade. We'll use the effect of the Horus stuff now, sending the Aqua. We'll get ourselves the King Sarcophagus, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Aqua after we draw one off the Imseti, and then we'll activate the right, as we're going to get the token along with the Fateful. We'll then be able to activate our King Sarcophagus, as this will be how we trigger our Fateful, as we'll special summon back the Imseti, activate the Fateful, as we'll get ourselves the Draco back, then we can activate the Fateful for our Griffin Rider, and now we can pitch the Draco back, equip the Draco back to the token, as we'll then be able to special summon out the Griffin Rider, and then we can use the effect of the King Sarcophagus for the pitch, so that we can get the Happy in the graveyard, revive it, so that we can get our rank 8 play, and then we can use the effect of the Fog Blade. We'll revive the Cloak so that we can turn the Rusty into a 2900 attack via the Cloak effect, and we can also revive the Scales this way, giving us access into a rank 3, as we're going to go into the Breaksword. We can then use the effect of Rusty popping the Breaksword. This will give us access either into a rank 4. We also get our Hope Harbinger effect for the attack boost, turned into 5000 attack because the Breaksword is 2000 attack. We'll then be able to go into our SP Little Knight, or you can go into Redoer, you can go into your Evil Swarm Exceed. It really depends on what you want to go into. But from here, we'll then be able to use the effect of the cloak, get ourselves the follow-up, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the gloves so that we can send the wings, set the droplets, and end our turn from there. So with all of the combos out of the way, we can get onto the deck profile, and the first thing I would like to say is that you don't have to play 40. I just wanted to play 40 to keep it pretty for the video, but really you can play 3 more going second cards if you would like to, because you are only playing 6 in this build and you are relying on a lot of gas in order to facilitate your plays, and that may not be the best thing to do. The noticeable thing that you may see from my list compared to others is that I'm not playing the zombie vampire, and neither am I playing the Coach King, even though I play all the names. And it's just because I feel like with Phantom Knights in specific, getting out your negates as quick as possible is more important, because the Phantom Knights alone can do their own stuff, and if you're able to stop that one problem card that your opponent has, then the Phantom Knights will really just win you the game from there with stuff like Access Code, Nightmare Unicorn that they can just shuffle away with. They can get a lot of damage on board with stuff like the Ragged Gloves, giving your Exceed monster 1,000 more attack. You also have the Cloak boost on the Rusty and stuff like that. And especially with the added consistency of the Horus cards and the Adventure stuff that you can really just max out on now, having the 3 King Sarcophagus so that you can pitch your Phantom Knight cards. I just don't really feel that you need to play the consistency rank 8, even though you can. Now, I also would like to mention the other links that I left out, and you'll notice that I'm not playing the Link Spider and the Almirage, and it's just because since we have all the discard options now via the Fateful, we also have the Horus stuff now, the King Sarcophagus, Torrent Scales. Droplet is good again, so it means that there's that too. Just don't see the need for stuff like this right now. The Appaloosa, the reason why it's not here is because Little Knight exists. Appaloosa used to be in the deck specifically because of how hard this deck struggled around Nib, but I just don't think that we need that anymore. Now, some other counters that I would like to talk about, aside from the ones I talked about earlier with Droll, Imperm, and Ash, you have Nib and Shifter, which are just killers for this deck. The Bestials and the Crow can also hurt the deck a lot because it is very graveyard reliant, but Druid's Worm in specific is even more annoying because it brings out that big body that also gets to send stuff to the graveyard, which just means it's another resource that you have to give up in order to out it. That said, this is a deck that can also theoretically play cross out for some of this stuff. If you would like to cut some of the things here, like the Water one and Stained Greaves, you really don't need to play. If you don't want to auto-lose to Droll and Droll-heavy formats, you can even cut the Rhoda, technically. And that just opens up 3 slots that you can play for extra going second cards if you want to keep the deck at 40. You can take them out and still play 43 without these cards. This is just how I'm choosing to approach the deck at the moment. I think that with the addition of Imseti and just how much better the adventure stuff is with Phantom Knights now because of the Horus stuff, getting the wings and shade and something that isn't 60 is better now just because there's more ways to get your things into the graveyard, so I also really like that. Other things I would like to note are the Dark, which is another way to get into your Nightmare Unicorn or your Rusty, so there are some plays that I showed earlier where we went into the Masquerena that you can actually go into the Dark, revive something from your opponent, and then be able to get into another play like that, or you can even beat over for game like that, or whatever you're doing. Outside of that, I really don't have much else to say, so I'll just get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 Scales, the 3 Imseti, the 3 Aqua, the 3 Rights, the 2 Talents and the 1 Thrust, the 1 Dracoback, the 1 Fateful, the 1 Griffin Rider, the 1 Happy, the 1 Water, the 1 Foolish, the 1 Rhoda, the 1 Wings, and the 1 Shade. We then have the 1 Gloves, Stained Greaves, the 2 Cloak, the 3 Boots. We then have the 3 King Sarcophagus, the 3 Fog Blades, and the 3 Droplets to round out the main deck. The 1 Levier, and I'm only playing 1 just because with this current iteration of Phantom Knights with the Adventure and the Horus stuff, I don't think that you need to rely on going into Levier turn 1 as much as you used to, because before you were really going for that Appaloosa more often, but now that you really just want to settle on Rusty plus hopefully a Photon Lord or your adventure stuff, I think that keeping the one for the follow-up is just much better now, as you can play the 2 break swords. Then we have the Redoer, the Hope, the Photon Lord, Zeus, Typhon, SP, Mask, Dark, Keru, Rusty, the Nightmare Unicorn, and the Access Code Talker to round out the deck profile. For everyone who's made it this far into the video, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.